Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me without this thing? Normally I can fill a room, but my voice is exhausted. You might imagine with the eclipse coming up, I'm doing 16 to 18 presentations a week, and this is everywhere from Tennessee all the way down into Texas. It's an honor to be here. I was thinking on the way down here, with school being out, I don't know why, and I don't know why it's pertinent to this group, except all of us are somewhere in the general age group, we'll call it the hump. And do you remember the first day of summer? This is June 1st, and how wonderful that day was because you knew it was coming. It was the last day of school, or school was out. You had the whole summer ahead of you. It seemed like eternity, and it was such a fun-filled time. It still is. That's right, it still is. That's what I wanted to say. What a shame that our children and our grandchildren can't grow up in the same type of fun-filled summers that we used to have. And some of you, I heard you say that one club may not be active this summer, or you haven't really been active. I hope I change that today, because we have something coming up that's going to absolutely keep you on your toes for the next year and a half. And if you think I'm exaggerating, you may not by the end of this presentation. The longer I'm getting involved in this, the more I realize this is going to be a huge event. We've got a solar eclipse coming up on April 8th of 2024, and it's going to go right over Morrilton. It's going to go right over Conway, Birdtown, all the way up through Clinton and exit out of the northeast part of the state. It's the longest eclipse on record on American soil. No one has ever seen one this long before, and no one living will ever see another one like this one. And we are at the maximum right through here. You have to know something about eclipses and eclipse chasers. These people come from 40 countries. I'm using 2017, which the eclipse went through Missouri, not anywhere near as favorable as this one's going to be. I'm using that as an example. Those people came from 40 different countries, every continuous state in the United States, probably Hawaii and Alaska too, to somewhere along a 70-mile strip of land from the west coast to the east coast where they could see totality. Tens of millions of people. This eclipse is going to surpass that because of the time of day, the time of year, and the fact, well, actually two facts. COVID is over with, we hope, and people we're dying for something to do, like the kid on his first day of summer out of school. Something is going to happen, and everyone wants to be a part of it. The eclipse generation has started to include the entire family. It started to make groups, like RV groups, we'll say, similar to that, where these people travel together. They pick a location. Let's go to Morrilton, Arkansas. Let's go to Petit Jean Mountain. We'll set up and we'll see the eclipse because it's going to be 4 minutes and 20 seconds. That's the longest ever. We can take movies. We can take pictures of the kids under the eclipse sun. We've never had this opportunity before. So all I'm saying about that is that this eclipse is going to surpass anything that anyone's ever experienced. You're going to get to see if I've learned how to use this machine here. Hey, how about that? I can't even see my clicker. Arkansas Sky Observatory is up at Petit Jean Mountain. That's where I'm from. I'm technically retired, been retired since 2000. I used to be involved with Harvard, the Smithsonian Institution, NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and Tokyo Observatory. I've paid my dues. I've been in it a long time, but I still love astronomy. The sky never gets out of your system, but more importantly, my desire to leave behind a legacy of what I know about the sky and what I know about science is very important to me. So I cherish opportunities like this, and I really thank you for being here. What I primarily do at ASO is to study near-Earth objects. There are tens, hundreds of thousands of these things out there. We're not going to talk about those today, but you need to know why the observatory is up there. Since the earliest time in my career, since 1972, I've been part of the Harvard Observatory Network. I was the very first outside satellite observational station for Harvard, and believe it or not, it was near the North Little Rock Airport of all places. Most people didn't know it. We reported new comets and asteroids as they were being confirmed from other observatories that would locate them. This is a good example of something to get excited about. This is a near-Earth object, an NEO as we call them, or NEA, near-Earth asteroid. They are passing by the Earth as close as 6,000 miles. Not all of them pass by. Some of them hit. This one came out of nowhere. This is Oumuamua. That means Hawaiian for scout. Oumuamua went through here in 2020. It passed 6,000 miles from the Earth. When we first picked it up, astronomers at Kitt Peak said, this object is not from our solar system. This is coming from deep space, outside our realm, somewhere out there in the stars. It's almost Star Trek talk. And we thought, no, there's just no way. But in reality, there is going to come a time where we're going to meet something from deep space that we know has come from another star. Not another planet, but a planet circling another star far, far away. It is going to happen. It's almost inevitable. The interesting thing about this object, and the reason I want you to just look at it and think while you try to go to sleep tonight, this is a 9-mile asteroid. I call it an asteroid. That's what it's an object. It's hollow inside. It's like a tube. It's 9 miles across. When it passed the sun, instead of slowing down as they should, because they're losing the gravitational pull from the sun, this thing, as though it had engines, actually sped up and is continuing to accelerate now, trying to make it out of our solar system. What was it? We have no idea. The odd thing is, the next year we found another one just like it. We don't know what they are or where they're coming from, but we do know, based on their orbits, that it's something outside, far, far away. Our closest star is 2.5 light years away. If you traveled at the speed of light, which we cannot do, it would take you 2.5 years to get there. Leave your calling card, 2.5 years to get back. There's over 150,000 asteroids out there that I study. Well, I can't study that many. I do about 150 a night when I have a good clear night. And that's using 17 computers with massive computer banks and databases. I get fresh information every morning from Harvard. It's generated into the computers. They tell me where I need to be looking, and I recompute the orbits. If anything's out of orbit, that's where we send up a red flag. The reason we send up a red flag is because if the orbit alters, it could be the next big extinction event. There was a wonderful show on Nova, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, a 2-hour special, on the great extinction of the dinosaurs that took place 65 million years ago. And it was caused by an asteroid that hit in the Gulf of Mexico. Although it was a wonderful program and scientifically very valid, the asteroid they kept referring to, I think David Attenborough was if you stayed awake through him, he said 9 miles across. We're thinking more like 55 to 60 miles across, traveling at 55,000 miles an hour, hitting the Earth out in the Gulf of Mexico. This is cool stuff, and I hope you remember as much as possible. If you don't, you can check the Arkansas Solar Eclipse website, Facebook page. You can check the Arkansas Sky Observatory Facebook page, and all this information and updates will be forthcoming. The city of Morrilton has started a Facebook page strictly for the eclipse, and it's going to become more and more active. I'll talk a little bit more about Morrilton and its involvement. Imagine going from that bright sun that you normally see in the sky at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. The path goes right like this. It crosses right through Morrilton. I want to tell you what a solar eclipse is, the fundamentals of it. I'm not going to bore you with this, but you need to know, because you're going to be, let me back up. You're all community leaders, or you wouldn't be in these organizations. It is your responsibility to know, because people are going to be asking you questions. And it's your responsibility to help the community enjoy the benefit of tens of millions of dollars in revenue coming in here for 1 week. 1 week. And it's your responsibility to help keep this from being an absolute catastrophe because of lack of planning. When you get what might be as many as 1 to 3 million people in this tiny stretch of land from all over the world, If we're not prepared, it can be a disaster. If we are prepared, it's going to be the best thing that ever happened to this state. A long time ago, people looked at eclipses as bad omens. They didn't understand the fundamentals and how these things work. It's very easy. Scientifically, we're kind of done with eclipses. There's not anything to be learned from it. Well, I say not anything. There's a few things. But from an astronomical standpoint, we don't learn new things when an eclipse happens. Just like you, I want to sit out and look at it, take pretty pictures of it, and enjoy it. There's nothing to study because we've kind of been there and done that. But in olden times, up until just 200 years ago, most people did not really understand the fundamentals of it. Suddenly, can you imagine if you didn't expect one, and you were outside, having a plow being pulled by an oxen, and all of a sudden the sky just went dark, and you were thinking, my gosh, what's happened? What did I do wrong? And that's what most people would think. But, times stick with us. It's amazing when you look back at the history of science in the world, how ignorant we were just 200 years ago and how much we've learned since then. In China, the first records of observations of a solar eclipse took place, just like the first observations of new stars, exploding stars, collisions on the moon. The Chinese astronomers recorded that stuff, and they were supposed to be able to predict it. You worked for the emperor, and those emperors were tough. You think it's tough over there now? It was probably tougher then. 2 royal astronomers had their heads cut off because they didn't predict eclipses. And, how could they? They didn't know what caused them. But anyway, eclipses, because they didn't know what caused them, they decided that it was a dragon, some sort of celestial dragon that would come out of the dark ether of the night sky during daylight and start eating the sun. And when you look at an eclipse, I'll show you a picture of a partial, it does look like the first part of the eclipse, the progression, is something's eating that ball in the sky, taking chunks out of it, more and more and more and more. Well, what do you do about something like that? Okay, we're the Chinese. We're the greatest nation to exist on the earth, during this period 5,000 years ago. How do you get rid of this thing? How do you run the dragon off? Well, they invented fireworks. Necessity being the mother of invention. In this case, it was fear. They had already developed gunpowder. The fireworks were in use, but they really didn't have any idea, what are we going to use this for? They didn't make weapons out of it. Well, some bright guy, to keep his head on, decided that we're going to use a Roman candle. I'm sure it was a Chinese candle back then. And we're going to scare the dragon away. And he's going to spit the sun back out, and daylight will return. And sure enough, that became a tradition until they learned exactly what the eclipse was. Today we know the eclipse is a very simple thing. We have 3 elements. Okay, you got the sun. Now this is not to scale. The sun is 1 million miles across. That's an easy diameter to remember. Huge by comparison. You got the moon, and it's only 2,300 miles across, tiny by comparison. And then you've got the earth, which is bigger, and the moon goes around the earth. The moon is always moving eastward. When you look at it in the sky at night, in addition to it rising in the east and setting in the west, you can watch it and actually see it next to the stars moving slightly to the east hour by hour. That is the progression that allows it to intercept. Let's say it starts up here in the afternoon of the eclipse, and it moves, and all of a sudden it blocks the sun. And that's all we're seeing in an eclipse. It just so happens, I'll leave it up to you, is it coincidence or is it God-given? The moon and the sun from Earth are exactly the same size in the sky. Even though one of them is 1 million miles across and the other one is 2,300 miles across. You put them up there side by side to the human eye, they're identical. Otherwise, we could not have a solar eclipse. So when the moon does block out the sun, we have a shadow that appears on the ground. Here you can see clearly that's the moon in front of the sun. This was a lengthy time exposure from Nova Scotia. Notice this, all this bright stuff. That's not just scattered light. It's not like you block the sun with your hand and you can still see light everywhere. That's the actual outer atmosphere of the sun. This is one thing that we can still study. I know in the audience we've got some ham radio operators. This is the stuff that you dream for. You know, when it's active like it was that year, you have great repeatability and signal strength. You can bounce signals. You create magnetism in the ionosphere on Earth, and it's just a lot of fun. But it also can cause total disruption. I believe it was in 1860, the entire telegraph system across the United States that had just been laid burned up because of solar activity. And right now, coincidentally, we have major solar activity going on the sun. It's not expected, and it's increasing daily. Just an FYI, I guess. Okay, this is an eclipse that is recorded from space. The International Space Station guys conveniently saw an eclipse. Moon, there's the sun behind it. This is the atmosphere of the Earth. And you see right here, that's the shadow. That's that shadow that's cast. It's just, you know, like I tell people, if you hold a basketball up with a string and look underneath the basketball and you see that shadow, that is technically an eclipse because the basketball and the sun from that distance are the same size, so it's casting a little shadow of its own. So the eclipse itself in 2024 is going to start in Mexico. It's going to come up through the eastern part of Texas over Arkansas. It's going to move in around Texarkana, cross right over here. And the geometry of this thing is such that the very central part of this 70-mile wide path of the eclipse is going to be right over this area. So that makes it longer. We're going to have 4 minutes and 17 seconds of totality. And it's going to move at 2,000 miles an hour. It doesn't seem like much time, but 2,000 miles an hour over our landscape gives us 4 minutes and 17 seconds. The shadow's 75 miles an hour, 75 miles in diameter, and the cause is nothing more than the moon moving in front of the sun where we see it. Now this is an eclipse from Arizona from beginning to end. And let's just say that this is the one in Arkansas, or it could be the one from ancient China. This is the sun just come up. There's no moon in the picture, but it's up there. It's a new moon. We just can't see it yet. And here we go 15 minutes later. All of a sudden, there's that first bite out of the sun. That's the moon right there that you can't see, and it's moving this way. A little more there every 15 minutes. And look right there at the very last. Almost gone, and you can kind of see the moon. And that's called totality right there. That's what's going to cause the darkness. This eclipse was only 2 minutes long. So, and here is the moon moving away. It's still going this direction and leaving the sun behind until it's out of the eclipse. So you can kind of see how the Chinese thought, you know, dragon. I mean, that makes sense to me. We see dragons in the sky all the time. So it had to be one of those dragons eating the sun. Let's shoot off fireworks and it'll start spitting the sun back out again. Now, what you're going to experience, this is the cool part. I've already said you can't really do science on an eclipse. There's not much left that we don't already know. But there are many, many Earth-based things that are very fun and they're important. Get your family involved. I've got activities that are planned for hopefully all the schools where they can get out and do something and make things that they can take home and show pictures of what they did. But it's going to go completely dark for almost 5 minutes. I mean, that in itself is remarkable. The air is just, it's really like nighttime, except it happens instantly. There's no twilight. As soon as totality hits, I mean within a millisecond, the air cools down 15 degrees and the wind starts blowing. Nocturnal animals come out, the little frogs, tree frogs, crickets. You'll see skunks come out. You really will. You'll see skunks come out. I was telling someone earlier, my best experience was down on the coast of Mississippi when I wasn't expecting anything, but we heard rustling in the reeds and the cane over on the beaches, and out comes a bunch of peacocks, you know, and they were all crowing it was nighttime to them. They were going through their getting up at nighttime ritual. The interesting thing is you'll realize a clear loss of depth perception, and you'll feel like you've got vertigo or loss of balance. It's very hard to walk right before and right after totality. It's very odd what happens to you. It's not like twilight. It's not like just kind of being in a semi-darkened room. You literally have a two-dimensional feel to your walking. So you'll experience. You'll see what I'm talking about. An interesting thing that a lot of people want to know: how dark does it get before the eclipse? These are actual photographs taken by a friend of mine. T-minus 14 seconds, 10, getting a little darker, 6. Here you're starting to notice a real difference. 2 minutes before the eclipse. This is when things get weird. Animals start coming out, and you're going to start feeling a little bit disoriented. In totality, it's dark, and it's going to stay dark for that 4 minutes and 15 seconds. This is essentially what the sky will look like, except not captured in this picture, I don't think. Stars come out. You're going to see the Milky Way. You're going to see stars overhead at night at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, the fundamentals of what we're looking at here, again, and this map is correct, the blue line is the center of the eclipse, and you can see, here's our bullseye. It's going right over us. This means a longer duration, and it means a much more favorable eclipse. This is going to take place at 1 o'clock Central Daylight Time. It's going to be almost directly overhead. Perfect. If you've got a parking lot, if any of you have a business, if you've got some way to entice your friends, your customers, your associates, anyone, get them out there and let them look at it, because it's going to be so favorably placed, and it's only 5 minutes out of the day. Here's the path across Conway County. The longest of the eclipse is going to be at Birdtown. It's 4 minutes and 17 seconds. But all along that yellow line, it's greater than 4 minutes. So what I'm estimating, and I'm putting myself out on a line, everybody says, I can't imagine 3 million people. But I'm estimating 3 million people along this line right here. And most of them are going to be where there's towns. And what's the biggest town in Conway County? And then we've got Petit Jean Mountain up there. And granted, you only have a certain amount of space, and everybody says, well, people will come, we'll run out of space, we'll just shut it down. We just won't let any more people come in. That's not what happens. I've been to 17 of these, and every year they get bigger. If you shut it down, they go around the barricades. I'm going to show you a picture in a minute you're not going to believe. You're not going to stop them. They're going to be here for that eclipse one way or the other. Early on, most people want to know, what's the weather like? On April 8th of 2024, originally we had less than around a 50% chance of it being clear or cloudy. That's improved, actually, since I made this graphic. We're up to 65% now based on NOAA information, the latest climate information. So I think we're going to be one of the most favored places. That's better than Texas, and it's better than Tennessee and Kentucky. So we're in good shape. Here are the times, wherever you live in Conway County and places in Arkansas. The red is the longest and the most favorable locations. Yellow is getting close, but look at those times. People that go to these eclipses have never seen an eclipse this long before. They've never even seen these numbers. I mean, this gives them twice the amount of time to do all their movies and entertainment, show their children, take pictures, and do experiments that the teachers have sent the kids home with. And so it's going to be just absolutely a very memorable and productive eclipse. I mentioned earlier that I think you as civic leaders need to be prepared for this. And it's your responsibility to help the community be prepared too. And I say that please, because we already have an eclipse committee working really hard here in Morrilton. I've gone around, I can't tell you how many, several hundred communities already and worked with them. People may stay in Little Rock because of the lodging situation, but they're going to drive either the night before or that morning, since they've got all morning, and they're going to try to get to Morrilton up the interstate. We're right on the interstate. Or they're going to stay in Fort Smith and drive the other direction. Russellville will be in totality. They'll have a little bit longer totality. Atkins is very favored. They're going to have one of the longest, just like Morrilton. So I'm saying that if we're prepared and we let everybody out there that wants to come know that we're prepared for it, they'll come here. They won't go to Russellville. They won't go to Conway. Let's get them here. Most people do not stay in hotels. I'll tell you this for fact, experience. Most people will not stay in hotels. They're not going to stay in prepared lodgings, condominiums, or apartments that people are making. They're going to stay in RVs and tents, and they're going to stay in their cars. So, what does the community do to benefit from that? Even people that stay in cars have to eat. They're going to buy groceries. They're going to go to restaurants. They're going to go buy goodies at the local store. They're going to need medicine. If you're prepared and you're a businessman in this town, this is your chance to make a lot of money. This is a chance for Morrilton and Conway County to make tens of millions of dollars on one day. This is on a Monday. People will start coming in on Thursday. You'll have Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Everybody will be gone by Monday night. So don't worry about Monday night. Say, well, I want them to stay over and enjoy the town. They're not going to do that. Everybody wants to get out. And that creates a problem, as you see here. This is, I put the Carbondale in here because this is right before totality in Carbondale in 2017. And again, this is not anywhere near as favored. Notice both sides. Before this picture was taken, every one of these cars, plus 100,000 more for 10 miles in both directions, were on the freeway stopped. On the freeway. They had to get in there and get the National Guard to help them get off and get anywhere they could put them because these people weren't leaving. There's no way. You can use all the military might you want. You're not going to get 1 million people to leave and not see that eclipse if they've traveled that far. Look at the RV park down here. This was some guy's ranch. He rented out those places for $1,000 for 3 nights each. He made some money. You could get rich quick. Eugene, Oregon. And this is 2 days before. Again, the people come on Thursday. This being Monday couldn't be better. They will be here on Thursday. They'll have their place locked down where they're going to be, and they'll already know, based on brochures and things that we hope to put together, where they're going to eat, where they're going to go shopping, and where all the good Eclipse souvenir goodies are going to be. This is Nashville, Tennessee. Some of y'all probably heard about this in 2017. It got so bad in Nashville, they were expecting 300,000 people, and the latest estimate that I pulled it up before I came here today, the latest review of all the different major cities is that Nashville had close to 1 million people in the center of town. It was so bad that they canceled the courts, they canceled all the city functions and meetings, let school out, and all the emergency services were concentrating on the eclipse situation. They ran out of water in some neighborhoods. They were ready, but they had no idea. What all the city leaders, their words are almost exactly, we had no idea how big this was really going to be. This is the one I wanted you to see. This is a freeway. Can you imagine? The cars were hopelessly stopped. And I thought at first when I looked at this, I got this in a review of somewhere in Missouri and Kentucky in 2017, I thought it was a wreck. These are people that had waited in line at this particular location for almost 10 hours, and they finally gave up because traffic wasn't moving. So what do? Look at there. I mean, they've got their picnic out here, you know, and here they're just pulled over everywhere. Somewhere there's somebody laying around sleeping. I mean, and here's a guy on the roof of his RV getting ready for the eclipse. I'm telling you, and trust me, this is what they do. That's why, you know, Petit Jean State Park says, oh, we'll just take as many as we get and then we'll just turn everybody away. It doesn't work that way. They're going to keep on coming. And poor old Petit Jean, there's one way up there and one way down. And it's going to be a very, very favored location for the eclipse. I'm going to get up on my property, block the road, and shut the gate. And I'm not coming out. A farm field, another ranch. Look at all the campers. These people were charging $300 a night, so it's over $1,000 for a weekend. Now, so let's quickly just simply go over the problems. And this is not meant to scare you. Alan used to think I was trying to scare everybody, but I'm not. These are things you just have to be aware of from a community. If you live in Morrilton or the surrounding area or anywhere on that yellow line or close to it, these are things you need to be thinking about as a family and as a community member. If you're a civic leader, you need to help keep this from happening. Space, where are they going to set up? They're going to set up in any open area they can find. Any open area. If you've got a parking lot, if you've got a city street, expect to have a whole bunch of eclipse telescopes. These people don't always bring telescopes. Probably less than 20% of these people have telescopes. They're not astronomers. They're people that are looking for a good time. So don't confuse the two. So you've got space consideration, lodging. We don't have a whole lot of lodging in Conway County. So I know the city's working on eclipse villages. If you have farmland or if you have any open areas that's not being used, consider roping off a 15 by 30 area and leasing it out. But when you do, you've got to think of porta potty, sanitation, liability, and all that stuff too. Food and water, those are two of the critical things. I'm not sure that we really have the water resources to be able to repump our water supplies quick enough for 1 million people. I really don't. So hopefully people are working on that, because our water source also goes to Conway, which is also going to have people staying there and looking at the eclipse. Sanitation concerns. We don't have enough public restrooms. Nobody does. So the city is contracted to have porta potties brought up here. That's a great thing. This is the time we have to do that. Safety. What are you going to do if somebody gets hurt? How are you going to get to them? And our public safety folks here are already working on all these things. Parking, law enforcement. There's some talk, I believe, that the mayor has started considering closing off some of the city streets, making them one way, or just closing them off altogether and using the sidewalk system. Excellent idea. We're talking about public transit, little shuttle services, you know, like from the college into inner town, or from inner town to Pettygene perhaps, to keep the traffic off the main highways and keep our safety lanes open. Oh, here we go again. Medical supplies. Everybody that comes to the eclipse is going to forget one of their medications. Do our pharmacies have enough stuff in stock to be able to refill stuff? See, this is one of the things. If you know a pharmacist, pick up the phone and call them and say, have you thought about this? You really need to be thinking about helping each other out, we'll call it. Traffic control, there is none. We can maybe do the best that we possibly can. Gasoline, people come up here and they think, well, I've got a quarter tank gas, that's going to be plenty, I can get out when the eclipse is over with. Well, you can until your RV runs out of gas, because you're idling in stuck traffic and trying to run your air conditioner at the same time. So you're going to get stuck. Emergency services, we're working on that, and I think that's going to be pretty good. And then, of course, you've got your local wear and tear, or your local infrastructure wear and tear. That's always a problem. But the benefit is all these people. They're going to come and they're going to have a good time. They're going to remember Morrilton. They're going to remember what you did as a community leader to make their experience better. There is so much benefit to this thing, and that's what we really want to key on. Here they are. Look at the opportunities for your local business. Well, I'm not in the eclipse business. I don't sell eclipse stuff. Well, trust me, there is a way that no matter what business you're in, you can benefit from this. If you got a parking lot and want to rent parking spaces or places for people to set up their family in lawn chairs, do it. They expect it. They don't expect you to give away space for free, because it's going to be dog eat dog. Whoever gets there first and pays the first $100 for a 12 by 12 spot simply to set up chairs, that's who's going to win. It's no different than the state fair. People charge for parking, so expect to have to do that. Visibility. This can put Morrilton on the map if we do it right. You know, we've got a fine city. We don't have a real broad recognition of Morrilton, Arkansas. This is our chance to change that. Let's make it a good experience for them. Imagine the food, beverage, and food income. Food, beverage, water, bottled water. Imagine the income off of that. Motels and lodging. Festival and entertainment opportunities. We're already planning to do a massive educational outreach for all the public schools in Conway County. We're going to try to do it maybe jointly through the college here, as well as maybe the Institute up at Winrock Institute up on Pettigene and the Observatory come up with an educational series that we can stream, broadcast, YouTube directly into the living rooms or the classrooms of all the kids in this area. They will benefit greatly. The teachers will benefit greatly. But we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue that I'm not going to say could, is going to come in to this area. Cash speaks volumes, and boy, doesn't it. This is the final tally from South Carolina. Columbia had the best hit on this. Look at the numbers. 2 days, they had 2 million people. In 2 days. And their eclipse was right over the western horizon, right about ready to set. It was not favorable. It was very short. 2 million people still showed up to see it. $269 million in added revenue for 2 days. And if you don't think that's important, in your community, you're wrong. And from 38 states and 20 foreign countries that they know of in South Carolina. Again, no matter what you've got, you can benefit from this. And you can make someone else's eclipse experience much better. And best of all, just enjoy the eclipse and have a good time. You're going to be hearing a lot more about this as time goes on. I was telling folks earlier, I'm exhausted. I'm already running all over the country giving presentations about this and what communities like this need to do to get ready. But I really hope that all of you, this is the best opportunity for us to excel, achieve, and grow economically that we'll ever have again. So take advantage of it, help your community, help all the folks here work together. I think it's going to be I'll tell you one thing in closing. I've worked with a lot of private entities and I've worked with a lot of small towns and a couple of big ones. And still working actively with them, trying to help them a little bit. My dedication's here in Morrilton. And I have not seen the progress and the heads-up approach anywhere that we've got right here, right now. We're going to make it. We're going to do good, but we're going to need your help, okay? Thank you, everybody.